Greetings, friends, and welcome to another ministry of the Victory Hour here on YouTube. My name is Jim Gallagher. I'm the pastor at Clavel Assembly in Foster, Rhode Island. And welcome to our YouTube channel. We're talking about the dating of the book of Revelation. Was it written in 95, 96 AD while John was on the Isle of Patmos as he was banished there by Domitian? Like most say? No. The book of Revelation was written prior to 70 AD when John was banished to the Isle of Patmos by Nero in probably 64 AD. And that's what this series is about. Now, as I told you on Monday, I don't usually do 3 videos in a week. Usually my videos come out one on Monday, and the second one comes out on Thursday. But this time, the last posting came out on Monday, and this one's coming out on 2 days later on Wednesday, and then tomorrow, there's going to be another one, and that's going to be a sermon that I preached back in January of this year. I think it's part 3. I did a 3-part series in the dating of the book of Revelation at Clavel in January, and this will be the 3rd part. And in that 3rd part, I cover stuff I haven't covered with you yet here in this YouTube series. And by playing that, it helps me to end the series this week, because that sermon's over an hour long, and it would take me 2 or 3 postings to cover that material. And I don't have that time, because on the 28th of April 2025, I'm looking to start the series for multiple reasons on that date on the true Israel of God. So that's coming up. You want to brace yourself for that one. Invite all your Christian Zionist friends, all your dispensationalist pals that are carrying the Schofield Bible, that worship at the shrine of Dallas Theological Seminary or Moody Bible Institute, that teach a pre-tribulational rapture, a postponed kingdom, a 1,000-year millennium. It's false doctrine. And you've got to know who you are in Christ. We'll be starting that series on the 28th here on YouTube. Invite your friends, We're running ads and papers to say, hey, YouTube series, The True Israel of God. We're thinking of, see, I'm making this ahead of time. And maybe by the time you hear this, it'll already be in place. I'm thinking of putting up a billboard. I'd like to put one up on 95, right in the S-curve, or something like that, but those are like mucho dólares. I was told by someone they're about $8,000 just to have it up there, I assume, for like a month. We won't be going that big. Unless someone wants to make a nice donation to us for that purpose, I'd be happy to put one up for that, But we have to work within our means, and according to the love gifts that are given to us in support of the ministry. And I don't ever ask you for money on this channel. Of course, you're always free to give it. I mean, you're free to do that to anybody, and you'd be free to do that for this ministry as well. If you ever wanted to give money to Clavel Assembly or the Victory Hour, if you wanted it to go to something specific like that, you ought to, in a gift, put a note. I want it to go for, like, if you want to go billboard, you want to buy a billboard, you do that, and we'll do it. Happy to do it. Happy to receive the scorn of most of Rhode Island. So, yeah, you can do that. You can just, write to us and send a check with a note saying, yeah, this is what we'd like to do. Say, all right. You can't tell us what to say. But if you have a particular thing you'd like to see happen, and if I feel like I can't do it, I'll just send the money right back. We won't do it. And I won't use it for anything else. Look, we don't operate that way. I don't ever ask for money. You know that. This ministry is supported by the love gifts of God's people at Clavel. And we're a very, very small assembly. If we had a few hundred people, then I could do all sorts of fun stuff. We don't. People want some of the truth, but they don't want it all. They don't even want most of it. I think it's always been that way. It's worse now than, say, 200 years ago for sure. Anyway, okay, I'm getting sidetracked, so I don't want this to go long. This is already one I'm squeezing in. We're talking about the beasts here. Revelation 13:18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beasts. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So the number of the beast, which is the number of a man, is 666. But John says, here is wisdom. It requires wisdom to understand this. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beasts. It's 666. So when he says count, in other words, calculate. The beast is 666. What does that mean? It's the number of a man. What man? Calculate it. How do you calculate the name of a man? Well, this is for Hebrew Christians fundamentally to figure out, because John's trying to tell them it's Nero. But if he came right out and said that, he'd get all the Christians killed by Nero. So there has to be, has to be hidden. So he used what the Jews used many times, the gematria, because the Hebrew letters have corresponding numbers. The first letter of the Hebrew alphabet represents 1. The second letter represents 2, and on you go. Then you add up the numbers from the name that you're thinking of and see what it adds up to. It's going to add up to a very specific number, 666. That's very specific. Not many names will add up to that. Now, people say, oh, you can come up with all sorts of names. Well, they play games with the names. But as I told you last time, if you take the Hebrew letters that spell out Nero's name, Nero Caesar, you say, but Caesar's his title. But that's right. With someone of that import and that stature, that title becomes a fundamental part of his identification. Like I said to you last time, if you're talking about a president, no matter who the president is and what you even think of him, just the office of the president, you say Mr. President. Or you might say President Trump, or President Biden, or President Obama. But you show respect to the office. It's kind of like when someone's a medical doctor and Dr. Jones, call him Dr. Jones. Oh, you don't have to call me doctor. Just call me Bill. My name is Bill Jones. Oh, very friendly. But, that's the default thing to go to. That's a proper. That's the right thing. And in history, they're going to use that for... Now, you talk about the Caesar of Rome? Yeah. Nero is Nero Caesar. And when you take Nero Caesar and put it in Hebrew letters, spell out his title in Hebrew, the letters add up to 666. They even will add up in Greek when you transliterate it, and Latin. And Nero Caesar even adds up to 616 when you drop the N off Nero Caesar, the last N, because it would be Neron Caesar, actually. And you don't need the last N. It's optional in that spelling because of that language. So even though some early manuscripts had the number being 616, 666 became the accepted one and the majority one, but Nero adds up in both. And as the professor from Harvard in 2002 said, the chances of other options working out both to 666 and 616, there's no alternative. It has to be Nero. Yeah. But you don't even need to know all that. Because we know that the command to calculate the number of his name in Revelation 13:18 was given to the 7 churches in Asia that John was writing to that existed 2,000 years ago that don't exist today. He's telling them to calculate it. They can't calculate the number of the name of the beast if the beast is someone 2,000 years later in history, like all the futurists think. If the beast was Saddam Hussein, how are the early Christians in Philadelphia and Laodicea going to say, oh, what if it's Saddam Hussein? Let's see if that works in Hebrew. They can't do that. They can only test out names that they know and names that would be plausible because they were in the tribulation. You see, when you add all that up, there's no escaping it. There's no alternative. Now, someone can argue, well, we think the beast could be some Jewish fella, maybe someone from the priesthood that we're not familiar with, but that's possible. But, yeah, what's his name? You can't come up with it. Nero works in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And historically, it matches what's in the Bible. Timingly, chronologically, it matches what's in the Bible. You say, can Nero really have been the beast? Really, Nero representing Rome, the empire? Well, it shouldn't be so shocking to you. So when I did that series of sermons back in January at Clavel, and I knew the stuff about Nero, but, I hadn't preached on Nero for years and years. So, I just brushed up on a little bit of my history of Nero, and I want to share some of that with you to show you, look, we've got all the biblical evidence. Yeah, it's got to be someone in John's generation. It's got to be someone in the first century. It's got to be someone before the fall of Jerusalem. Yes, Nero. Nero, who murdered, remember, Mystery Babylon, kills the prophets, the saints, and all the righteous blood shed in the earth, and they're guilty of the blood of the apostles. And Jerusalem set up Rome, and who killed Paul? Rome. Who killed Peter? Rome. Who killed Jesus? Rome. Who put them all up to it in all three cases? Jerusalem. Mystery Babylon worked in concert with the beast. Jerusalem worked in concert with Rome to persecute God's people. Yeah. I mean, that's the end of the story as far as I'm concerned. At least to prove that the Christ returned in the first century, and that's when the tribulation was. I don't care what you really think about Nero, but I'm just showing you more stuff. Does Nero fit? Well, I think he does. He was quite the insane maniac. He was sadistic. He was a megalomaniac. He was, to say the least, quite the unstable villain who persecuted the Christians in the days of the apostles and the Christians of the first century before the destruction of Jerusalem. And who got the ball rolling for Jerusalem to be destroyed? Nero. Now, he died in 68 during the 3.5-year siege on Jerusalem, so others picked up the mantle. And when they did, well, the head of the beast, which was wounded, was healed. Nero, just to show you how easily he slips into this package that we're painting, Nero was 16 years old when he became Caesar. Can you imagine that? 16. Already, he's not going to be stable with that kind of power. He's 16 years old. In 59 AD, he would have been 22 years old when things are getting hot and heavy. Yeah. The wisdom of a 22-year-old in 59 AD. Yeah, that's Nero. As Caesar. Yeah. In 59 AD, he killed his mother. How many people do that? Not too many. Some people may sometimes feel like doing it, but very, very few would actually do that. I mean, it's a horrifying, terrible thing, wicked thing. Well, that's what he did. He killed his mother. And it seems like after that event in 59 AD, his insanity went full throttle. That's what it seems like. He ended up killing his brother, killed his mother, he killed his brother, and then he married his stepsister. What do you think about that? Yeah. Yep, killed his mother, killed his brother, married his stepsister. And anybody that was his political rival, he poisoned. Killed him. You can look this up in history. Just go read the history of Nero. He thought he was the Renaissance man, he did. Yeah, Nero. He thought of himself as an artist, as a poet, and as a musician. And he wanted to be the Renaissance man to Rome. And he wanted to show his wares and his poems and songs and artistry. And so he would perform in theaters, and he had lots of performances, and people were expected to come, if you know what I mean. And he had 5,000 soldiers that would attend these things, the Augustines, they were called. And these 5,000 soldiers would vigorously applaud at everything he did. Surprise, surprise, you know? It's like Chairman Xi comes out, and all the Chinese communists and the soldiers that are lined up as he walks by. Oh, hey. Oh, you better be clapping. You better be clapping aggressively and fast and in sync because, or like North Korea. That little portly munchkin comes out, and he comes out, same thing. Oh, yes. Oh, praise his holy name. Well, that's what they were doing with Caesar. 5,000 of them. They applauded and cheered all his performances in the theater, because these theaters were big, these big amphitheaters. And he's entertaining the masses as Nero. You better enjoy yourself. And he had rather have it hit an applause button, he had 5,000 men that were the applause button. Okay, that's Nero. And as he performed, his performances, I read, they went on forever, and people began to leave, so he got to blocking the entrances. So once you came, you're going to stay there till it's over. While he's performing, no one's walking out. That's Nero. In 60 AD, he built a new palace. That's what he did. And he ended up divorcing his wife, and as a punishment for her, he was to banish her to an island. She objected, and she cried foul, and she laid an accusation on him to vindicate herself, because he's just doing this because he wants to, you know. He didn't like the fact that he was opposing her, giving her a hard time, so he charged her with adultery. Now, he's just going to divorce her and banish her to an island. So instead, because she gave him some guff, he charged her with adultery and had her executed. Yeah, that's Nero. Yeah. Same man that crucified Peter, we're told by tradition, and beheaded Paul, and got the war against Jerusalem rolling. In 62 AD, he killed more of his political rivals that were in the Senate. They're dropping like flies. And then in 64 AD, the Great Fire, right? The Great Fire of Rome. It was a huge fire, that Great Fire. And the people of Rome said, Nero did this, right? They say Nero fiddled while Rome burned. That came from him, supposedly, playing a fiddle while watching Rome burn. Why would he do that? He wanted it to burn. And that's what people were thinking. He wanted his own place to burn? That's insane. I don't know. Ask Gavin Newsom about it. Ask Gavin Newsom about it. Look at the Palisades. While people's lives and the smoke is still coming and the fires are still raging, there he is giving interviews. Oh, we're going to build a smart city. It's going to be really exciting. And they had already planned smart cities for Los Angeles. There's a plan. It was, you can look it up online. Like, was it smart Los Angeles 2019? Was it or 21? They already had a plan for making a smart city. And everything was burning. Gavin Newsom, he was like falling. He was in glee while it was still burning, giving an interview. What a big dope. Little Nero he was. Oh, they forgot to cut back the trees from all the electrical wires. Oh, how'd they do that? Oh, they cut off all the water access from up north so that the firemen didn't have the water that they needed to fight the fires appropriately. Oh, they cut the budget of the fire department massively so they were understaffed just before all this happened. Oh, and guess what? You already had a plan in place to make a new smart city, and people are just going to have to lose their old homes, not be able to rebuild them, and they're going to do as they're told. Gavin Newsom, Nero. Nero, Gavin Newsom. Figure it out. The plan is as old as the hills. Well, that was Nero. That was Nero. As far as Newsom's concerned, that's my opinion. But, you look at the circumstantial evidence, and I haven't given you it all. But just I look at it, I was like, what is going on here? World Economic Forum people, I have a question for you. What's going on here? Oh, your smart cities. Well, okay, I'm not here to talk about that. So here's Rome burning. 3 whole districts, three whole districts in Rome burnt, completely annihilated. It burnt for 10 days. That's when he was supposedly fiddling, watching it come down. And the people believe that he intentionally let Rome burn to clear space for the new palaces that he wanted to build, which he did build on their ashes. He guess he was building his own smart city. Big dope. And he built a big statue of himself on those ashes too, yeah. He built a thing, now you look this up. It's called the Domus Aurea. Domus, D-O-M-U-S. Domus Aurea. A-U-R-E-A. Look that up. It was a golden pleasure palace. That's what it was. And that thing was ornate. It would make the apartment in Trump Tower look like chicken feed. Yeah, this monstrosity that he built, the Domus Aurea, this golden pleasure palace, was overlaid with gold, obviously, but also marble, ivory, and mother of pearl. I mean, and the thing was massive. You can look up like sketches of it online. You can see some remnants of it, photos. Tours of Italy. One of the things you can go see is the remnants of it. And you can see the reconstructed depictions of it. The thing is massive. It had panels in the ceiling. The ceilings were huge, wicked high. Had all these panels in the ceiling that at the touch of a button, the pulling of a lever, I'm not sure how they did it, but the ceiling would release a raining down of flowers and perfume on all the guests. But it's only the elite that would be invited here. The well-to-do, politically connected elite. And on them would rain flowers and perfume on all the guests. And the main room was this big, massive, circular room, and the whole room revolved. It turned like this, It went around, and it just would keep going in a circle. The whole room turned. Everybody be in it. The whole room would turn. And it rotated every day, all day. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Now, this is on the ashes of the place, all in the districts that were burnt, that the people said he did that to make this. So it rotated 24/7. You said, how did they get that a room that size made of heavy stuff? You know, marble and gold and mother of pearl and ivory. I mean, it was like several stories high with ceilings way up there. And all these people, how did they get, they powered it, I read they powered it with water. Can you only imagine the construction of this? I mean, I haven't seen a room like that in our day. It was opulent to the nth degree. It had high ceilings. Now, here's the thing that shows you his mindset. On the entrance, go look it up. It's the Domus Aurea. On the outside, at the entrance, there was a 120-foot tall, 120 feet, 37 meters. 120 feet. That's tall. That's like the distance a good field goal kicker might get a field goal. There was at the entrance of this Domus Aurea, there was a 120-foot statue of himself, Nero, naked. Spinning room, the hoi polloi, the rich and the mighty and the politically connected. And raining down from the ceiling is flowers and perfume. What is this? What is this place for? It's for what you think it's for. $120-foot image of himself naked. He's setting the mood. And all manner of the most exquisite and exotic foods would come out. And history tells us the people would normally eat until they vomited. Rome was becoming weak, gluttonous, and fat. She becoming debased. And let's face it, they already went through Caligula. So the people would eat in this palace of his until they vomited, and then the real purpose of this whole gathering becomes plain, which makes the statue of himself naked, 120 feet tall, makes sense outside, with the inside, with the room spinning and all the guests, and the flowers floating down, and the perfume, and the naked Nero, and it evolves into a mass orgy. This is the guy that killed Paul. The guy that killed Peter. It's his kingdom that killed Christ on Jerusalem's behalf. He persecuted the Christians, and a Jewish entourage approached Rome to see Nero. And they said, Nero, all the people are saying that fire took place and you lit it and you let it happen so that you could build your monstrosities here on their ashes. And everybody's hating you. And Nero knew it. We can resolve your problem, Nero. You can? Yes. You tell the people the Christians did this. Because the Jews want to say that, this entourage of rabbis and leaders from Jerusalem, because they hate Christ, they hate the Christians. So they say to Nero, you say the Christians do it, we'll back you up. We'll tell everybody how bad they are. Because for the average Roman citizen, You know, the Christians were just another Jewish sect. It's just Judaism. What Judaism, you know, they have battles amongst themselves. Who cares? That's the Romans. So you tell them, and we'll tell them, yeah, they're really evil. You know, that's why we denounce them. And then all the hate will go from you to them. You'll get what you want, blame off you. And we'll get what we want. Everybody wins. He thought that was a good idea. Nero develops the bread and circuses, the public arenas, and the games for the entertainment of the masses. For entertainment, he would take Christians and crucify them in mass for laughs, with thousands and thousands of people watching in the theater. It was a form of entertainment. These are the people that wanted to destroy your home. These are the people that lit these fires. These are the evil Christians of that Jewish sect that are evil. Oh, they're the ones, they got my grandfather killed. Yeah, that's right. Well, here they are. I'm crucifying them. What do you think? The people applaud because Rome is falling, whether she knows it or not. She had waxen fat and had grown thick. Woe to Zion when Zion is at ease. Well, the same applies to Rome, and it can apply to America too. So they crucified Christians for entertainment. They would take the Christians and dress them up in animal skins, real animal skins, bring them to the center of the theater, and then loose wild dogs on them so that they'd be eaten alive in front of the thousands of spectators for delight and entertainment. You want to confess Christ in those days? That's some of what was going on. And they took Christians, and they read it in the history books. They dipped them in tar and in pitch. Then they're coated with tar and pitch. And then they'd fasten them to these big poles. And then light them on fire. You ever have a brush fire? Back in the old days, you know, when we had brush fires with my dad, we'd take a cod tire, put a little kerosene in the rubber cod tire, then light that, and that thing will burn forever. A tire, once that tire is going, it goes and goes and goes and goes, and it keeps of course, nowadays they don't let you do that, but it was a common thing to do. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You're being wrapped in tar and pitch, then you're lit in fire, and those Christian bodies would just keep burning. They'd take these poles and erect them on the top of the amphitheater all around the Colosseum to light the games with burning Christians. Oh, they go on those poles while they're alive, yeah. Makes it a little more entertaining. Nero himself would dress up like a wild beast, a lion, a bear, whatever. And Christians would be attached to stakes down the floor of the theater. And he'd come out to either pretend to eat or actually eat them. Nero himself, dressed up as an animal, using actual animal skin, and would come out to pretend to eat or eat the Christians in front of all the people. The people began to sour on this form of entertainment, saying, you know, what's become of us? I mean, even bad people began to say, okay, that was Nero. The early church in those days identified Nero as the beast. Could you blame them? In 65 AD, Nero killed his second wife, and she was pregnant. So he killed her by stomping on her, and particularly made sure to stomp on her stomach to kill the baby in the womb, and then made sure she was dead by stomping on her head, no doubt. And in 68 AD, in his utter insanity, he killed himself. And based on Roman law, because John was sent to the Isle of Patmos by Nero in 68 AD, John would be released, because the law was, if you're a Roman citizen, you're sentenced to banished by a Caesar. When that Caesar dies and a new Caesar comes in, you get to be set free. And so John was released in 68 AD. Does Nero fit the right time? Yes. Is he guilty of persecuting and murdering Christians and the apostles like Mystery Babylon is guilty of? Yes. But what about Mystery Babylon is guilty of that? It's Jerusalem that set Rome up to kill these people. He that delivereth the Christians to Nero hath the greater sin. Just like Jesus says to Pilate, he that delivereth me to thee, that would be the Jewish nation, the leadership, he that delivereth me to thee hath the greater sin. The same principle is here. Jerusalem kept using Rome to do the worst of their dirty work. They are a smart lot in their evil way of how to get that done. They got it done. So if you ask the question, does Nero see, look how long this has taken. Well, you're getting your money's worth this time. You say, we don't pay a thing. Well, maybe that's a reflection on the content that I give. I don't think so. But you tune in tomorrow. This week, there's 3 postings at Clavel Assembly here on YouTube. Tomorrow, Thursday, the last edition that we're posting in this series on the dating of the book of Revelation. It's not going to be me and you here. You're going to see me in the pulpit at Clavel. This came from a sermon back in January at Clavel when I was talking about the dating of the book of Revelation. This is the last installment, and in that sermon, we cover the things I haven't got to yet. But how much do you need? Yeah, I could make this series go on for another 4 or 5 weeks, but I don't think it's necessary. The Bible speaks, but guess what? So does history. But where the real authority comes from is not history. God's word. Christ had to have returned in the first century, which means the tribulation had to have been in the first century, which means the beast and Mystery Babylon had to be in the first century. And if it isn't Rome and it isn't Nero, who in the world is it? See? So you tune in tomorrow and get the last bit of the story. And then on the following Monday, who is the true Israel of God? Let's take care of that business big time. And we will, Lord willing. This is Jim Gallagher, reminding you in the words of our blessed Lord and Savior, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.